So it is 6:09, so we'll officially open the public hearing for the Code of Conduct. Dave's going to walk us through the only change that is being made to the Code of Conduct for this year.
All right, thanks, Joe. So, as Joe mentioned, we reviewed the Code of Conduct, and there were no changes recommended by the committee. However, with the state guidelines regarding electronic devices and cell phones in the schools, we did make some changes to those sections, and it's on page 22 and 24 of the Code of Conduct. And just to kind of go through those, it was really just cleaning up that language to, follow the state guidelines. So, showing that the use of any personal internet-enabled devices by students during the school day, anywhere on school grounds, is now prohibited. It was changed, and there was previously breakdowns between the elementaries, Ray, and then Baker and Derby. So we got rid of those sections, and we just changed the language so that it reads, all students in grades PK through 12 may not use or possess electronic devices during the school day. Prior to the start of the school day, students' electronic devices must be turned off and immediately placed in lockers. And in some cases, the elementary school backpacks or other designated areas for their personal belongings. At no time is photography, videography, audio recording acceptable. That was similar in any school setting. The classroom teacher has full discretion over the use of electronic devices for educational purposes within the classroom, whether they are internet or non-internet enabled. And those would typically be our school devices that we're giving students, the Chromebooks and things that the students are using in our section. Then just some, again, changes where they're not allowed to possess electronic devices, whether they're internet or non-internet enabled. The big thing is just kind of going into the next page of it, where we show the use of internet-enabled devices under Section D. Devices permitted during the school day within the following guidelines. Devices supplied by the school district are to be used for educational purposes only, at the direction of the building administrator and teacher. The use of personal internet-enabled devices may not be permissible when used for may be permissible when used for the management of student health care, is documented in their IUP or 504 or medical management plans with prior authorization. And that was a big piece that we had to make sure was in there, because there are students who legitimately need those devices, whether it's a student with one that comes to my mind, diabetic student, these devices help to monitor their internet. The use of personal internet-enabled devices may be permissible when used for translation services with prior authorization. And the use of personal internet-enabled devices may be permissible when used as required by law with prior authorization. And when the use of electronic devices is permissible under guidelines, and again, this is the others language was not changed, still disrupt the educational, so it goes through the discipline stuff that was there previously. And we just added the caveat in the last page where we talk about the electronic devices are brought to school setting at the student's own risk. The school district accepts no responsibility for damage, loss, or theft of personal electronic devices or any school property or any school function. And then the provisions of above, as noted by the electronic devices, are subject to change without notice as per New York State education law or executive order as determined by the governor or the New York State Education Department. And that's just because we still don't know. There could be changes as this rolls out, and we want to be able to enforce those.
So a couple other quick comments related to this. So we know that in the law itself, as it's written, we have to identify one or more methods for parents and guardians of students to contact students during the school day. And so when you think back to when when there were cell phones, but they weren't used in schools, probably the late 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12-ish time frame, parents would just have to contact the main office, and we would get hold of their students and relay that message. So that's a practice that we used to do, and we'll probably be reverting back to that. And then regarding where students are going to be storing these, I mean, there's still guidance we're waiting to hear back from, but at this point in time, we're assuming that the storage of these devices will be in lockers at this point. But there is funding available for schools to get pouches. Don't know the feasibility of, that at this point in time, but we are going to be having a conversation at the local OCM BOCES region level so that if we can be somewhat consistent across the board from district to district, we know that that will be beneficial. So that is something that we'll be looking at with the areas that we have control over.
Do we assume any liability because we provide the pouches or the lockers or whatever?
Yeah, so just like it is right now with the disclaimers that are listed there and also in our policy, we own the lockers. They're basically no different than when students are loaned a textbook or loaned a computer for use. They understand that if we needed to get in, if there's damage to it, they have to report it so that we can make sure lockers are functional, so that they don't lose items or have items taken from their locker.
I haven't read this yet, but what is the expectation on districts in terms of enforcement, and is there any teeth to it?
So yeah, so that's where there's flexibility within the code of conduct. So they don't want students necessarily suspended from school. So there's got to be a range of consequences or options, and that's where there's flexibility in the code of conduct as it stands right now. And so one of the things that we'll be doing is working with the unions, because we also, based on the legislation, have to have union input. We also have to have student input. We also have to have family input. So there'll likely be a thought exchange that goes out between now and the end of the school year, so we can get feedback about those potential consequences or violations. I would see it being similar to what's happening at Derby. You get the warning. After that, the hope is that you would have, confiscation, parent pickup, whatever the case may be, to do whatever we can to prevent any type of suspension.
So I'm assuming, per the legislation though, like what the state is looking for from us as a district is some policy. The way we enforce or deal with it is up to us.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So the board will have a policy that we are in the process of crafting that we'll take to, or have the policy committee review. We will have to have that in place by August 1st.
All right.
So it's likely that, we chatted briefly at agenda planning. Our next work session in June, we'll probably have another special meeting so we get at least the first reading of that new policy.
Yeah.
But I'll get that to the policy committee for their blessing before we even put it on any type of agenda. And then we can approve that policy at the July 14th reorganizational meeting.
Quick question, Joe.
Yep.
A practical thing. So as I understand it, personal, student-owned devices are not going to be allowed to float around the building today. Teachers can introduce school property for whatever it is they want. That sounds like it adds up to teachers won't be permitted to invite students to bring their own devices for academics. Is that true?
That is my understanding, that they need to be stored away, out of sight, out of mind, and there wouldn't be a need for other internet-enabled devices because we issue the Chromebooks, which are internet-enabled, so they have to utilize those.
Just have a clarification question. So the definition listed here in the policy from the restriction is during school hours. That is from the start of the school day to the end of school day, and it includes passing, study halls, lunches. So it's pretty clear. It's from when they walk in the building till they walk out during those posted times.
That is correct. Yep.
But not after school athletics?
Not after school hours and or on the school bus. It's start of the school day once they enter the building.
Bell to bell.
Bell to bell. And that's pretty clear. It does list it in the actual what is considered a school day based on the law. It says school day shall mean the entirety of every instructional day as required by the subdivision 7 of section 3600(4) of this chapter during all instructional time and non-instructional time, including but not limited to homeroom periods, lunch, recess, study halls, and passing time. And then it goes on to say, what does it mean about school grounds? It means any school grounds during that bell-to-bell restriction. So athletic playing fields, buildings, structures, playgrounds, land contained within the boundaries of our schools, any district facility. So during the bell-to-bell ban, they can't use them. That's where, I mean, you think about it, if we're taking away that option from students when they're on a school bus, you know, that device in many ways is used as a way for the driver to also manage the students on the bus, and it keeps them occupied. So we wouldn't want to make that one more barrier for students. Any other questions about these changes? So at the reorganizational meeting, you'll approve the updated amended code of conduct with these changes, and we'll continue to solicit feedback from our stakeholders regarding this change and what consequences might be implemented based on our code of conduct. So it is 6:21, and so we'll close the public hearing for the code of conduct, and we will open the public hearing for the district-wide safety plan and SRPO agreements. And what I will point out with this emergency management plan is we are required to provide this public hearing. This will follow a 30-day public comment period where folks can weigh in, and then we will approve this at the reorganizational meeting as well. So the only major changes that you're going to find within this updated document is for a lockout situation. You're not going to get the breakdown because it's protected, but you're going to see that change where there's the word secure lockout, part of the safety protocols. They're emphasizing the fact that a lockout is a secure lockout. So that will be emphasized in all of the plans that we have moving forward. Other changes that we will note within this plan really relate to personnel changes. So there's some title updates for key personnel. There's some hiring of new personnel. So the chief individual of Baker High School is changing from Chris Denton to Jennifer Turpinning. So you'll see those changes. And then the last piece where there's an update to the plan relates to the extreme heat condition days and the maximum temperature law or bill that's now put into action. And so that also will require a policy update, which we will have for the board at that special meeting, and that will go through the policy committee. But we think we're in a good place with that. And we have procedures within our emergency management plan to address when temperature gets to a point where it is considered unsafe based on the law. So that is really the only changes that are made to our safety plan for 25-26. Are there questions?
What was the temperature? What was the temperature down? The maximum?
The maximum, 89. 89, really. Don't, 88.
That was 88.
88. Yeah.
I just have one thing I guess it's worth pointing out in relation to this is that we stated at the last, I think it was the last meeting we did the budget presentation, that all of our new buses are coming with air conditioning, and that part of our capital improvement projects with those areas of the buildings are built, renovated, fixed. I believe that also includes air conditioning for those areas as well.
That is correct. So any space that we touch, the goal has been to include updated HVAC as well, so that we're slowly addressing that issue in all of our buildings.
So over time, the temperature should be a non-issue.
That is correct.
Be great, oh, sorry.
Good point. I think it's gonna be easier to move kids from a classroom that's too hot to an area of the building that's gonna have an AC, and that's the whole purpose.
Yeah, I do not anticipate, unless there's like a, major heat wave that creates havoc on all the schools around. We have enough spaces, I believe, in our buildings currently to move students if we needed to. It creates an inconvenience for families when you have to send students home midday. And it does say within the law where feasible. So I think there's some flexibility, because if you really think about it, yes, it's hot, yes, it's uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
what are kids gonna go home to?
Right.
In many cases, hot, unsupervised spaces, and so they're safer in school. So we will continue to make upgrades and do the best we can with what we have so that we minimize that potential disruption.
What are the chances the state mandate came with some funding?
This one, unfortunately, hasn't. That would be nice.
It's right
Silly
Do we have any spaces outside of our buildings if need be, in an emergency, if we needed to move kids?
When you say outside.
Like, I don't mean outside, like another building.
Yeah, so there's spaces in other buildings if we had to move students because one building didn't have enough air-conditioned spaces. But again, my hope is that we don't have to worry about that. And we have other systems we put in place when we know it's warm. We run our HVAC system 24/7 for a period of time. We typically don't do that. It shuts off at like 5, 6 o'clock at night. But when it's extreme heat, we run it to draw in some cooler air in the evening hours. So hopefully it won't be an issue. And we'll comply with the law, because that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah. So that is it. If there's no other questions, it is 6:27. We'll officially close this public hearing on our safety plan. And that's it.
Amen.
Have a good evening.